able to determine what type of office space or warehouse space or whatever we decide is being looked at or looked for.
I agree with Steve and Christy on this. I think the EDC provides a valuable service for Gardner and all the other cities and businesses it represents, and I think it's a great facilitator for us, especially since Mike Hall said we don't have the staff to do that ourselves right now. I like the idea of maybe a 6-month, but I'm okay for the whole year also.
You know, I spoke pretty fairly a little bit about last time we talked about it, that I think it's really simple. The EDC's job is to foster relationships that promote business growth in southwest Johnson County. Gardner's job is to position ourselves to capitalize on those relationships so that they come within our city limits, and if we need to annex boundaries to make that happen or promote growth through incentives or other things, then that's where we need to come in. That's not the job of the EDC. Their job is to bring it to the table and help us facilitate that. I've said it time and time again, this is a partnership, not one organization working for the other. I see no sense in going to a 6-month relationship. They don't budget on 6-month cycles. Being a good partner allows them to promote for the next year, plan for the next year, and just allows us to be, again, I keep coming back to, it's a partnership, and that's how we are going to be a good partner to an organization that works for our benefit. So that's, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. That's what it comes down to for me.
The city of Gardner doesn't approve 6-month budgets either, so I certainly appreciate the position that they're in, especially considering in November they're planning on laying out their plans for 2014, so.
So you just signed another one of these agreements with Edgerton, is that right? Same agreement?
Yeah, there may be, but generally same agreement.
So on paragraph D where it says development proposals on page 2, EDC staff shall assist existing businesses and prospective new businesses in preparing development proposals for consideration of the city. What if one business is trying to play one city against the other, or in the case of the New Century Air Center, they're also in the mix? Who do you represent?
We represent, or I don't know if represent is right, we try to facilitate the best use for that prospect. And
So
there
you
was a
represent
case,
the business?
well, there was a case not long ago where we had an inquiry from the state of Kansas. They were looking for a certain site size, and what we do regarding that paragraph is we found 3 locations. They happen to be 2 that were in Edgerton, 1 that was in Gardner, and we didn't have one on the Air Center. So we went to the developers and facilitated a tour for the prospect, state of Kansas, and it was our job to say to the prospect or to the landowner, here's what they're looking for, here's what they need, here's what you need to address. It's not my job to say, you know, I really think that one's the best. I can say, here are the facts. This one, if you do this development here, you're going to have this challenge or this issue, but not to make that decision for them. Also, to go to the city or the county in case of the Air Center and say, here's this prospect, here's what they're looking for, here are the questions they have, help us answer that.
Why should the EDC, though, be the gatekeeper? I mean, you know the names of these businesses, but the council members here can't know the names of those businesses?
Not generally.
I mean, if we had an in-house person doing the same job, are you saying that we would still be kept in the dark?
Well, I think it's fair, though.
Wait a minute.
I want to interject here, though.
I'd like to have him answer that question.
But I think
Actually, Keith, you'll be allowed to speak in just a moment. And honestly, I'd really like a staff perspective on this.
Oh, can I get his answer first before we go on to your question?
Tom, if you're prepared to answer the question, Larry, if
What
you need
was
to
the question
rephrase.
again? You want?
The question was, if we had a person in-house instead of somebody that assists the businesses, how many businesses are there again that contribute?
Our members?
Uh-huh.
About 90.
So 90 businesses, 3 entities, and if we had that in-house advisor, I mean, it wouldn't be a secret. I mean, you, right now, you have a secret with 3 entities
Okay.
that we have to trust that you'll keep with all 3.
Mhm.
And if we had that information in-house, somebody came and said, we're considering a development in Gardner, I would think that, you know, we could know that under executive session at a minimum. Is that correct? Ryan?
Let me answer the.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
That, you know, depends on what the subject of, what the proposal is. I mean, if you're talking about extending of economic development incentives, probably not. That's a matter of a public session. It just depends on what the nature of the request is.
Is there a microphone? Yeah.
It depends on what the nature of the request is from the proposing party.
But in the cases of what you have, what are the natures of those requests? Or what is the nature?
We get, going back to that project, let's just talk about that one. We got the lead from the state of Kansas. If I were to take that information and bring it to an elected official, I would no longer get those leads. If I go and get a lead from, if the company comes to me and says, we're not out here in the market, we're searching for options. And if I go to the city council and say, guess who's looking? They're not going to come to me anymore. And the same thing will happen with the person in-house. That person isn't going to be able to come, maybe in executive session, but they're not going to be able to sit down with you and say, well, here's the name of the company. Why don't you call them? That's an automatic out the door. You're not even considered.
Well, and-
Actually, I was kind of hoping that we could get staff to weigh in on what Tom just said and to Larry's question.
There are certain things, it depends on what we are getting. There are certain things that we would be able to discuss. There are some things that we would be able to keep confidential.
And Tom, isn't it true that some of the inquiries we get are actually from attorneys or, I mean, you, in all actuality, don't even know the company?
Yeah.
But you're dealing with the broker.
Well, I think it's important to point out that currently there is no restrictions in place at City Hall for those individuals to contact Cheryl, to contact Mike, and discuss these opportunities. And if they want to do that, then we can discuss how that is. That's just the value of the partnership. Right now, they contact Tom and that group, and because of the nature of their business, there's some confidentiality that has to be in place. So asking to have all that on the table is just not a realistic expectation for the world that we're trying to live in. It's 2 separate things. And I said, if a developer wants to come and talk to Mike about it, then they absolutely can do that right now. It doesn't happen to be the case because City Hall hasn't maybe fostered those relationships in the same way. So we're not blocking any of that. That's why I wanted to speak to you, is it's all right there. They just aren't coming to us for contact. At some point, that may be the case, but again, that speaks to the value of the partnership and why we need to have those sort of relationships in place. I keep coming back to that.
Well, I'm looking at the contract, it says under Section 7, says no agency relationship. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in this agreement, the EDC and its employees shall not hold themselves out as or shall be an agent of the city. So, really, they're not an agent. They're not working for a city, any particular city. That's not in the agreement.
Well, they have 3 of these documents signed.
That is correct.
And they all say city, or in the case of Industrial Air Center.
That is correct.
So how do they represent all those people fairly? I mean, they do represent them. I mean, whether it's a direct relationship, the whole reason these companies come through a quasi-governmental organization like your own is that they do want to play off cities against each other for economic development. They want to see the incentives. I mean, is that not true?
Even if I wasn't here, that would happen.
I mean, they would...
If I might jump in. Larry, you seem to be asking the same question. I'm curious if there's anybody that wants to expound on the line of questioning that Larry's asking. Okay. And your point's taken. I think everybody understands what it is that you're driving at.
And as long as 3 of the council members don't have a problem with a 6-month contract, why don't I move that we execute a 6-month contract with the Southwest Johnson County Economic Development Corporation.
Let me get clarification.